Hey guys, it is Christine. Welcome. Thanks for watching. If you have never seen any of my videos before, I am mama to 3 little ones. I live in New Zealand in a tiny little town and with my husband and kids, and I run a couple of vlogs. One is a parenting vlog where I share all tips and tricks about parenting and mom life, and my other blog is about how to manage your home and how to run a successful blogging business. So they're always linked in the description below so you can check them out. But today I wanted to bring a video to you about sleep training and 3 things that I believe are basically essential to having success with sleep training. I have sleep trained all 3 of my children, and I want to, before we get anywhere, I personally don't think that there's anything wrong with the extinction method, but that is not how I sleep trained my children. When I say sleep training, I don't mean I just one day put them to bed and left them to cry for hours. That is not at all what I'm talking about. So you'll understand a bit more when I start talking about the topic today. But I have done sleep training with all of them. All of them were sleeping through the night from a young age. All of them have continued to be really great sleepers. They're currently 4 to almost 3 and almost 1. And they're doing really, really well. So I stand by it. I wouldn't do anything differently. I 100% firmly believe in what we did. And it worked for us. It's not going to work for everyone, but it worked for us. But today I want to share things that I've learned along the way that I think will really help new mamas when they're, or even not necessarily new mums, but maybe mums who haven't sleep trained in the past and are looking for how to do it now. So let's just get stuck into it. I've got my phone in front of me because this is based off of a blog post. Most of the videos I post on here are, so I'll have that linked in the description below if you want to read, usually I go more into detail in my blog post, so you can read it there. Okay, so that's 3 things, and then I have a few points under the 3 things, so I'll get stuck into it so this video isn't too long. But if you want to be successful with sleep training, the very first thing you need is a method, because the term sleep training is like a great big umbrella for a bunch of different ways to do the same thing, essentially. So when you say I'm going to sleep train my baby, that's going to mean entirely different things to different people. Like I said at the beginning, to some people they hear sleep training and they just think that you just leave your baby and abandon them and let them cry, which I would say the vast majority of mothers out there are not comfortable doing and would not do. Sleep training can mean leaving your baby to cry for some amount of time, whether that's a couple of minutes or a couple of hours. People do things differently. It could mean no crying. It could mean just establishing healthy sleep habits. So that's why it's really important to find a method that actually works for you so that you're not just floundering trying to figure out what you're going to do. And you could make your own method up, but it's helpful when other people have already done the work. So I'm going to talk about a few that I would recommend. 2 of them I've used with my own children with great success, and they are Moms on Call and Babywise. And I've actually done videos on both of those. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll go ahead and put them in the cards somewhere for you to go check out. Moms on Call is great if you want just a black and white, easy to follow method where they don't beat around the bush. It's written by a couple pediatric nurses. They know what they're talking about. And Babywise I really love as well. I've used that to some extent with all 3 of my children. I find it not as clear cut as Moms on Call, and that's why I prefer that, but I do still highly recommend it because it has I love the foundations and the principles of Babywise because it's based around the family and not just the baby. So it's about balancing everybody's needs in the household, which I think is really important. So I will have these methods, the books, linked in the description as well if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching on my blog, it'll all be in the blog post. So those are my 2 top favorites that I've used. There's also the 12 hours by 12 weeks is another method I have heard of. I haven't personally tried it. My babies have all been quite little. My youngest was born at just over 5 pounds, so she was a teeny little dot, and they eat really well and they put on weight really well, but I just didn't feel comfortable stretching them that much that soon. But it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that. So that's a method that's worth looking into. And then the last one, I didn't necessarily use his sleep training methods, but this book is really helpful to get a little bit more into the science of sleep, and the book's called Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child. I think that's it. Yeah, Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child. It's a hard name. But it's really, really good. It'll give you a bit of a background into sleep and how your child's sleep works, their sleep patterns, what you should expect. So even if you don't plan on using his sleep training techniques, it's actually just a really helpful book to understand baby and toddler sleep better. As I said, you can come up with like a hybrid method, and I've kind of mushed a few of the methods together over the years and just come up with what works for our family. But it is good to at least have a jumping off point, so it's worthwhile checking those out. The second thing that you need to be successful with sleep training is the right mindset. This is almost like the most important thing, because if you go into it with the wrong mindset, it's going to be really, really challenging. So the first thing you need is to know your why. Why are you sleep training? Because you're going to have to remind yourself of that when it gets tough, because sleep training is not easy. I don't care what anyone says. Like, I've heard people say that lazy mums sleep train, and I'm like, no. Like, do they have any idea how much hard work it is? It's really hard work. You have to be disciplined, and you have to be strong, like, mentally as well. So, know your why. For me, personally, it was for the sake of my children. I wanted them to learn how to establish healthy sleep habits so that their bodies were getting the amount of sleep that they needed in order to develop at a good rate. And then for myself as a mum, I'm not good sleep deprived, and of course there's always going to be a level of sleep deprivation when you have a newborn, but I didn't feel like it was necessary for that sleep deprivation to last for years on end. And that's different for everyone. That's a personal decision, but I felt like I would be a better mother to my children if I wasn't running on like fumes. And so sleep training, that's one of the reasons that we decided to sleep train our children from basically day dot. The other thing that'll help with your mindset is to have a plan. It's really important to have a plan in place. So whatever your method is, stick to it. Have a plan and hold yourself accountable to it, because it'll be easy to back down and to walk away. And that is the worst thing you can do for your baby or your child, whatever their age, is to chop and change and be inconsistent. They will get so lost and so confused, and it's just not fair on them. So my advice is to make a plan and stick to it, and let it develop in its own time. Sleep training often takes, like for nighttime, I find it takes anywhere from 3 to 7 days, and for naps it can take longer. So just keep that in mind. And then the last thing that'll help you have the right mindset is to discard the opinions of others. Like, no matter what you choose to do, whether you choose to sleep train or you choose not to sleep train, people will tell you that you are wrong and that you're a terrible parent and that you should do what they do, which is a load of rubbish, because there are so many different ways to parent our children, and one way is not going to be right for everybody. So please discard the opinion of others. It doesn't matter. Like, it seriously does not. Go with your mama gut. Go with your instinct. You know your child and you love them, and there's nothing wrong with sleep training. There's also nothing wrong with choosing not to sleep train. It's just up to you. Because I know there have been mums who say they've been shamed for choosing not to sleep train, and they may be under the impression that those of us who do choose to sleep train, like, look at them and think, oh, you're a terrible mother. I've never thought that, ever. Like, I don't care. But I've also been on the receiving end when I've been told I'm basically abusive for having my children on a schedule and teaching them how to sleep independently, which is laughable, really. And I think it just comes from a place of misunderstanding, which is unfortunate. So just realize that you're never going to please everybody, and you need to have a thick skin because you are advocating for your child. And you're going to have to do that more than once during their lifetime. So start now, practice, be strong, and just know that you're doing the best thing for your family. Okay, and the final thing is to have the right tools in order to sleep train. And you don't really need a ton of stuff, but these things will make the process easier. The first thing is to have a video monitor. I have had a video monitor for all 3 of my kids, and I don't know how I would have lasted without it. It just gives me such peace of mind to know that I can, look at a monitor and know that they are safe and loved, and I don't have to worry about like tiptoeing in and checking on them and disturbing them. So I love a monitor that gives you the temperature of the room and like alarms if anything's wrong, kind of thing. But if you are sleep training and there's crying involved or whatever, you can at least look at them and see that they're safe and there's nothing terrible going on. So I would highly recommend getting a video monitor, or at the very least an audio monitor. All right, the second product that I think is great to invest in is a white noise machine, and I have used this again with all 3 of my children. I highly recommend having one. It actually soothes me to sleep half the time, but having a white noise machine is not a sleep prop. I've never had any issues with my children, like as I get older, sleeping without one. My eldest two can definitely sleep without a white noise machine, no problem. But it just is really helpful because it indicates to your child when it's time to sleep, just having that noise association. And also it'll help get them into a deep sleep and help them transition through sleep cycles. So highly recommend it. I'll have the one that we use linked in the description below. We bought it and I loved it, and then I bought a second one so that the kids have got one in each room, and it's great. Next up are blackout blinds, and I find these really helpful for when my kids are young, but as they get older, I don't find them as necessary. But when you're establishing healthy sleep habits and getting them into a good routine, having blackout blinds is great because one, again, it's association. When it's dark, it's time for sleep. And so they've got that set up. And two, if you're struggling with early morning rising, it can really help to eradicate that by just keeping the light out of their room so that their body is basically tricked into thinking it's still nighttime and they need to continue sleeping. So I'd recommend them. Have a look on Amazon. I'll have some linked below in the description. But they are really, really helpful. And the last two things are, one, a swaddle. And this is only applicable if your child is under the age of 12 weeks and they are not rolling. If they're rolling, don't just discard this. You cannot use a swaddle if your baby is rolling. It is not safe. But under the age of 12 weeks, they still tend to have that startle reflex. And so using a swaddle is very helpful to get them through sleep transitions. If you're not swaddling your baby and you're finding that they're waking up after like 30 minutes, then it could be that startle reflex that's waking them up, and they're not able to get themselves back to sleep. So best thing to do is swaddle them up tight. I have used the Magic Swaddle, I think it's called. It's really good. And then there's just like the basic Swaddle Me type. I'll link a couple down in the description that I've used and would recommend. And then the final product is a pacifier. And this one's kind of like controversial because a lot of people say it's a sleep prop, and technically it is. But I never had long-term issues with the Passy with my children. They've all stopped using it by the age of like 4 or 5 months max, without me having to wean it at all. They just drop it. But I really like it. Actually, it's in the Mums on Call method where they teach you how to use it in like soothing and interval rounds if they are crying. But I personally find that it results in less crying overall, and they still learn how to put themselves to sleep without it. So I'll often give it to like my baby initially when I put them down, and then they'll spit it out and they might cry for a little bit, and I might come in after 5 minutes and give them back in, but I only do it like 3 times and then that's it. I've never had issues with my children having like a bad habit with not being able to drop it or get rid of it. So yeah, I would recommend having one. I think it is helpful, especially in the early days. And if you can have like set boundaries around it on how to use it, then it's not going to become a sleep crutch for them. So that is my advice for sleep training and how to do it successfully. There are a bunch of different methods and a bunch of different ways, and they're all going to be different for everyone. But I hope that you found it helpful. If you do have any questions, just feel free to leave them in the comments and I will do my best to answer. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.